Welcome to the Adoptive Dad Playbook. Sit back, relax, and grab a beverage with your host, David Bishline.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Adoptive Dad Playbook. Hope everybody's doing well in this summer of 2021. I know for my family, we are enjoying summer. We're going to be going on some vacations here soon, and it's been good to kind of reconnect with the kids, but also at the same time, I would like them to go back to school. I am glad you guys decided to join us today, whoever you are, wherever you are, and it's going to be a good one. So, kind of some exciting news on us over this past week. We got word that our case in Korea has now been approved. So our submission to the Korean government was approved. So basically the Korean government approved that we can adopt. So that's a big moment for us. We've been waiting for that for 97 days. That's a long time. So now the process will become us waiting for a court date in Korea, and at that point we can then plan our travel. So stay tuned for that. So today's episode is a good one. I'm excited for this one because we're looking at a foster worker's view. So I have two gentlemen on. I have Zach Love and Terry Banks, and they're going to work for the Department of Human Services in Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma, and they give us a view of what it's like from the other side, the foster worker, the foster care view, and they do a phenomenal job explaining that. And we're going to get into that. But today's charitable organization is one out of Oklahoma called 111 Project. And they are an organization that is there to help foster families, adoptive families, or just families that may be struggling possibly with that. And they work with churches as a way to provide food or clothing or maybe rental assistance. And the cool thing is they work with local churches to do that. And what's really neat about this is that they are there to help families, whether it be foster or adoptive. So that is 111project.org. I will put the web address in the show notes. But if you're looking for a place to support, or if you're a church in Oklahoma, give that a look. Without further ado, today we are going to go ahead and get into today's episode. As I said, we have a little bit different episode than probably most of you are used to. It's a little less, interviewee, and a little bit more just kind of us chatting about foster and adoptive care, really foster care in this situation. Now, they're from Oklahoma, but I think it's a good example of all foster care in how they work and what they do, the sacrifices that they make to try to make sure children are in the right home, and the right home is there for the children. Zach and Terry both do a lot of recruitment, and they also share with us what Therapeutic foster care is, which is something I did not have any idea about. So, without further ado, I would like you guys to hear what they have to say, and I appreciate you guys coming on, and hope you enjoy it. Well, welcome, everybody. Our guests today are Mr. Zach Love and Mr. Terry Banks. They both work for the state of Oklahoma in their foster care system, and they're going to share with us today about how that works. And Zach is engaged to a piston. Watch out, they are feisty. And Mr. Terry, I just met, Mr. Banks, and so he will share with us the dad perspective on this. Gentlemen, first off, thank you for coming on the Playbook. How you doing today?
Doing good. I'm excited to be here.
Don't lie. You're not excited. You're just excited to not have to work right now. I know you're on the clock. The state of Oklahoma is probably going to dock you the pay. All right? I know how those.
Hey, we'll find out. I mean, it's all about recruitment and just trying to give a different perspective. So there's ways to work it.
It's basically like a write-off. Like if you were working for the ad agencies, you go into a fancy lunch, you get that steak dinner. They just kind of write it.
Don't mind if we do.
Well, first I'll be honest. I know Zach. So when I was at Camp Barnabas, and if you guys have listened before, that was where I met my wife. Real special place. Zach was actually what we called a barn stormer, which were middle school age young men and women who would come in and clean the bathrooms and do the dishes. And Zach, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember you specifically because you had hair back then. Maybe if I saw you with hair, and no beard. But now
I was gonna say, if I dug a picture up with my long hair, you'd probably be like, "Oh, that punk kid."
I
Yes,
probably would. And I know you're engaged to one of the Pollock Pistons, and they're just Jason and Sarah, just phenomenal people. Love both of them. And Mr. Banks, I don't know you, but I'm excited to get to know you guys. So let me first, how has COVID affected you guys, your families, and just maybe your work in general? How has that kind of affected you guys?
I mean, if anything, I'm a little bit different approach than what other people probably have said. It's, in my opinion, it's kind of benefited because it's allowed us to work from home now, instead of going to an office every day. So in my opinion, that's a huge plus. But as far as like being able to recruit and get out there, it's a little bit harder. So we've been trying to use our brains and come up with new ideas.
Yeah, I agree. So on a personal level, it's really nice just being home with my family. I'm married. I have 3 kids. We just had a baby in March. So March
Congratulations.
30th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so it's really nice to be home, be available for them. Like Zach said, though, on a work level, on a professional level, it is harder. It seems like when everything just kind of shuts down, like, and our job is really to be in the community and outreaching, then it makes it really difficult to do that because the community is all at home. So yeah, definitely having to come up with more creative ways to reach them, but also with everything opening up slowly now, it seems that we're kind of getting back into the swing of it, which is nice.
Yeah, I know in Missouri, it's opened up. And I didn't think you guys ever closed in Oklahoma. I thought it never really affected you down there.
I mean, I think it just depends on which town you're in. Some it looked like it closed more than others, and some I don't feel like it ever really closed.
Does the panhandle of Oklahoma ever close? That's the question you have to ask yourself. I've driven through there a few times, and my dad is from, he wasn't born there, but he's raised in Enid. And I mean, that's Enid, Oklahoma is like smack dab. I mean, what is that? It's an hour and a half west of Tulsa. I mean, it's out there. And one time he went down and he shared that he used to cruise for chicks on Van Buren Street. And I'm like, whoa, that's gross, Dad. Don't share that you've been cruising for chicks. So I know those Oklahoma nights are not a lot to do out in the panhandle. All right. So if you guys have listened, we have our warm-up questions. I'm going to give them a couple here. All right, gentlemen. Zach, since you're not married yet, I'm going to use the word fiance. What's the one thing that annoys your fiance, Zach, and Terry, for you, your wife?
I mean, one of the things that I know annoys her is with this lovely beard I have, I'll play with it or like twist it, and she thinks it's so gross. And I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's when I'm like concentrating or just not paying attention, and she'll be like, "Stop that." And I'm like, "Oh, my bad.
One thing that annoys my wife. So we tend to trade like dish duty, and just kind of inadvertently trade it, I guess. But when I empty the dishwasher, I have the tendency to just throw things on the countertop and then put the dirty dishes right into the dishwasher as quickly as possible. And and sometimes I think, oh yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Don't worry. Like I'll come back to this. And when it doesn't happen, she walks in and it's like, oh, they're, bowls not put up where they're supposed to be. So that would probably be the most annoying thing to her. Thankfully, it doesn't happen too often.
Why put them away if you're just going to use it again? That's what I want to know.
Exactly.
Good point.
My thing is, if something needs to be soaked, just let it soak. It cleans itself. And that's what I always say. So, True. All right. Are you guys video gamers? Do you play video games? And if so, what do you play?
I am a video gamer, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge video gamer. I'm kind of, as I have time for it, or if we're not deep into a TV show, we'll play, but it's typically on the Nintendo Switch or the PS5. And
you got a PS5? Dang.
Yeah, I got a PS5.
So Must be nice.
One of the few and proud.
But PS5, we've been playing a lot of Adventures of Sackboy, because it's a good 2 to 4 person game. Yes, it's a very intriguing name, but it's really fun it's one that me and my fiance Rachel play a lot, because it's a good 2 person. And then whenever we have our niece and nephew down, it's still perfect for them too, because it's kind of a good age for everyone to go through different puzzles and just have a fun time.
Sounds like. How about you, Terry?
So I would say I used to be a bit more of a gamer in my younger days. Now I have like older systems, so I don't have a Nintendo Switch or a PS5. I have a PS2, which most people probably don't even know what that looks like anymore. And I have a Nintendo Entertainment System, so an NES with the cartridges.
And it still works?
It still works. Thankfully.
Gotta blow in there, so blow that dust out of there, blow it out.
Right, yeah. So we play more Super Mario Brothers 3 on the NES. Yeah. And the kids seem to enjoy it. It seems to be, it's a family-friendly game to do, which is nice.
It's fun to play Super Mario Brothers 3 on the Switch because you get like all those old Nintendo games when you join their online. And so my kids are like, "What are you playing, Dad?" "Oh, this Mike Tyson's." Well, it's called Punch Out. When I was a kid, it was called Mike Tyson.
Punch Out.
Yeah.
And Glassjaw Joe, and I was playing that, and the kids were laughing. And the nice part is you can like save all your progress. I'm like, cool, I can come back and start right here again. I was like, this is great. So it is fun. I think I played Tecmo Bowl. I was like, dang, Bo Jackson and Lawrence Taylor just tearing it up. So it just shows you how old I am. I'm 40 now, so just I'm really old. And that's kind of the way it is. So, all right, well, let's hop right in here, guys. Since you guys both work for the Department of Human Services, why don't you guys just kind of share, what you do and, how long have you been there and just kind of just what you do to kind of set the base for our listener. My parents listen.
Hey, I'm just glad that I can finally be here and be one of the two people that your parents have heard on your podcast. So
this is the 12th episode. So,
okay, 12
1. All right.
But no, we both work for Department of Human Services in the foster care and adoption recruitment side of things. I've been with the agency now for 7.5 years. Crazy to think about when I thought I'd only be here 1 year, but we're making it work. And basically our goal, I've done anywhere from working with the bio families and trying to get those bio families back together, to working with our traditional foster families, making sure they have what they need, whether that's therapy or making sure placements are working out, A, for the child, but B, for our families. And then now we've been doing recruitment and then some therapeutic and intensive therapeutic foster care. Just really trying to make sure that we get good families in here and answer any questions that come along the way.
Yeah. So similar situation for me. I've actually been with the agency. It'll be 7 years next month. I've had 3 different positions in the realm of child welfare at DHS. So I was an investigator through Child Protective Services for a few months. Then I worked as a caseworker or permanency planning worker, which helped the biological families, kind of like what Zach was talking about, in getting them services, getting the children services, with the goal of reunification ultimately. And then transitioning from there into foster care recruitment and getting some other roles in foster care recruitment where we're doing outreach. We are walking with families through the assessment process, through that paperwork of getting their home approved. And then also on the other side of that, doing TFC, therapeutic foster care, and intensive treatment family care.
When you were an investigator, what kind of things did you do there? What kind of things did you have to do for that?
Yeah. So when I was investigating, this is more when a referral gets called into the department, we go investigate what the allegations were. So depending on what the allegations were, like if it was some sort of neglect or abuse, we would be kind of the first responders in the home to talk with the family. And they ultimately are assessing the family. And that's when you would see decisions to be made, whether the child even needs to be removed from the home, would be on that investigator's end.
Did you make that decision?
So DHS is kind of a weird middle ground. We report what we see to the court, and then the court, the judges, the ADAs, they are the ones that ultimately make the decision. We have no legal standing to pull a child out of a home from their biological family, but but we do tell them everything that we're seeing, the concerns that we have. So,
when you were called to a home, was it majority of the time like this was the right call, or do you think people overreacted? Like, that's always something I've always, as a teacher, I am a mandated reporter. If a kid says I'm getting beat, I have to make that call, no questions asked. Now, the high school level, I haven't had to do that, but a handful of times, if less than that. But the deal is, I think at the elementary level and middle school, they probably get a little more. But what was that like to go in and investigate? How did parents act and other people involved?
Yeah, I think in my experience, and I only did this for a few months, but just in my experience of going into someone's home kind of blind to the situation other than what's been reported, we would see a couple of things. Sometimes the allegations were completely false, like there wasn't any actual issue. The allegation didn't fit within what we're seeing. But there were times that maybe we walk into a situation and what the allegation says could be something different than what we're seeing. So we may see something completely different, but it's still potentially harmful for the child or a safety threat to the child. So yeah, it was kind of back and forth. I mean, there are multiple situations of where you go into a home and there's not really anything that is concerning. But there's multiple factors that go into that too through our assessments. Well, I can't remember what your last question there was, though. That was like.
Just what it was like to go. I mean, were people, could you know right away if someone's going to be helpful, or was it just you walk in and most people just kind of defiant?
I think people tend to have kind of a fear of DHS. They hear DHS and they think, oh, like I don't want to mess with them. There's kind of this idea that DHS will just remove your children. And so I think the department has worked really, really diligently in ensuring that, if there's a situation that it could be harmful to a child, we need to address that. But ultimately, we want to do what is best for the family. And so we do want to walk into somewhere, and I don't know how a family operates. So I have to come into it as someone who maybe my bias towards particular action is very, it's different, just different than what that family, how they operate. So if you come into a home and you're willing to help, I think it kind of alleviates some of those concerns. But most people, I think, have just kind of a fear based of DHS. They don't want to talk to them.
Kind of reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer and Marge lose Bart, and they go next door to the Flanders. That was always people always think, well, they're going to come in and take him right next door to the next door neighbors. There's my pop culture reference for this episode, everybody. So, you've talked, I know, Zach, you told me all about your therapeutic foster care. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what is that and how does that differ from traditional foster care, and how do you recruit people for therapeutic over traditional?
Yeah. So for the most part, therapeutic foster care ranges basically from 4 to 18 typically. And they typically have some kind of mental health or behavioral health needs that cannot be met in the traditional setting. And then we also make sure that we provide on top of their basic needs that of the child, that we also are giving them, constant supervision, or they might need help adjusting to the home or school setting. That they also get, weekly therapy in the home. They're going to have wraparound services. They're going to have all this extra training, that they will do to become a therapeutic foster home compared to what a traditional foster home will be. But they're going to have a lot more wraparound services coming in to work with this 4 to 18-year-old child that has these issues, where traditional foster care for the most part is 0 to 18. As soon as they are born, if they come into a situation of abuse or neglect, then we're looking for that traditional home where we've kind of got rid of the thought process that no matter the age of the child, that there isn't anything wrong, I guess you could say in quotation marks. And we've learned that for the most part, almost every child needs some kind of therapy to help them adjust, to help them, continue to cope, even after if they were removed as a baby and put into this foster home and that foster home ends up adopting, then we've learned that they still need that therapy to build that bond, because they're still missing out on that 9-month bond before they were into the actual real world that they had with this natural mom. So it's really just making sure that A, traditional, you're still going to have that therapy, but B, therapeutic is going to be in the home. There's going to be wraparound services. You're going to have all these things that you probably almost need as a traditional foster home.
Yeah, that was going to be I was going to take that. How do you decide who gets therapeutic? Because I'm sure that people that are listening and men that I've interviewed that have done foster care, I mean, most children, if even younger children, require or should have that. How do you decide who gets that therapeutic foster care?
I think it's more so on. It's more going to end up being more so on the child's worker. I can't speak for other states, but in Oklahoma, every child that comes into care, they have their own worker. And that worker is basically advocating for that child and that family and making sure that they have everything they need to succeed. And I know for, again, Oklahoma, because that's where I work, so that's the main state that I can talk on. But in Oklahoma, our number one goal is reunification. So when I'm saying that child and the parents, as long as it is a good home and as long as they work their service plan, we're going to start looking at reunification. But as far as the difference between therapeutic and traditional, it's really making sure that that child's worker is realizing everything that's happening in that child's life and saying, hey, we probably need to step it up because due to this behavior report, we went and got it analyzed and we see all this going on. So he, she, they, them may not be a good fit for traditional. I know that's where we're at right now as we wait. Sometimes we may end up going to like a group home or shelter, unfortunately, something that's not quite that family oriented while we wait and try to find that therapeutic foster home. Because I don't know, Terry, if you remember what numbers we have, but I think our therapeutic side is pretty low, at least for the state of Oklahoma, something like 50 homes or so.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact number of kiddos that are in care that qualify for TFC. And just to kind of add on to that, I think that there's also some work from the permanency planning worker or the caseworker in the situation where they are, I don't think they make any sort of decisions alone in what qualifies for TFC. I think there's and correct me if I'm wrong, but Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, I think, goes through some of that. And
yeah, I think there's a whole group of people. I just know the first step generally is that going to be the child's worker to start thinking.
They're going to see it first. Yeah. They're going to have, because they're working directly with the foster parents too, that have that child in their home. And so most of the time they're going to be the first ones to know some of those behaviors that they're seeing. And when they start seeing those concerns, then they can bring them up to, their supervisor and kind of go up the chain from there and looking at maybe a higher level of care for the child.
That makes sense. That I would imagine that, because I know you guys are big, your one of your main jobs is recruitment. And I'm going to take my next question. How do you recruit therapeutic foster? How do you sell it? I'm like, man, maybe I'll foster care. Sell me right now. Why should I be therapeutic foster care? All right. I'm like, well, we're thinking about it. Sell me. I'm at the used car dealership. Sell me that. All right. Give me that therapeutic foster care.
you want our pitch is what it is.
Yeah, man. You got to earn that money. All right. The taxpayer state of Oklahoma expect you to be. Well, I know how those Oklahoma people are. They don't like government too much down there. Okay. So no, how do you sell Therapeutic? Because I've heard the foster care, and you've seen the commercials. Anybody can foster, but I think personally, Therapeutic, that's got to be an overwhelming. I'm sure when you talk to men, especially, probably, Therapeutic, therapy, how do you sell that? How do you sell that to the families, especially the men?
It's a good question.
You want to start?
I think so. Just to maybe outline a couple things to make sure we have some basics down. DHS does not have technically therapeutic foster care homes. These are all third-party agencies that have therapeutic homes. So the way we have discussed a lot of recruitment efforts towards kind of targeted recruiting is that we want to look at a lot of current traditional homes. If we're seeing some really good things from current traditional foster care homes, then there may be some willingness and some, mainly because they know the process of what traditional looks like. And it's not a terribly different process to become therapeutic certified. But they would have to go through a third-party agency. And if we're just seeing good things from that home that we feel some confidence in, that they would be able to care for children that need that higher level of care, then hopefully, we put them with the right agency, they can get the tools necessary and then go from there. For general public, I think it's a little bit tougher because I find that a lot of people that I talk to look at traditional foster care as sometimes really difficult, and it can be really difficult. And therapeutic almost sounds like an extra level to that. And in some ways there are. I heard recently from an agency, from a therapeutic agency, that they are able to care for children better because they are really, they know that child so well, that they know those behaviors so well. They're able to then go and serve that child on their level. And they know they're more acquainted with the child. They know who that child is. They know the behaviors. Zach, do you have anything to add to that? I
want to say one thing. I want to say, I love when you guys talk, because I think a lot of times for a lot of people, especially not in the foster and adoption realm, and you guys working in it and me walking this journey, a lot of people view, I've talked about this previously, there's an orphanage, whether it be in Ukraine or whether it be a foster family in Oklahoma, that these kids are all, life's hard, and they watch the movie Insta Family. I was going to ask you that later. Is that real life? And so I think it's great that you're really emphasizing that you are putting the child's needs first. People view foster care, even myself for a while, it's a machine, it's a bureaucracy. They're doing what's easiest. But I really like that you guys are emphasizing that we are looking for the best families, the all-star, rock star families that can help these kids that, as you guys call kiddos. I hate that term. But I love it. And thank you so much for emphasizing that foster care is meant for the child. This is not just something. And you guys are obviously caring and passionate about it. I love it. So I just want to say that you talking has shown that you guys are there for the children. This isn't just convenience. You're not just out there to get it done. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
That's good. I think
you're doing a good job on the therapeutic and side of it, and just trying to explain it. But to go with what you just said, Dave, I recently just approved a traditional foster home that they don't have the everyday general needs and things that we've gotten used to. So they don't have Wi-Fi in the home. They don't have any technology. They don't have a TV in the home. And so speaking of children's needs, I was like, so whenever we look at placing a child here, make sure that they understand, yes, they can have their tablet or whatever if they bring it, but they may not have Wi-Fi, but they're willing to go to the closest library and upload stuff. And a lot of it's because his family lives on a farm and they would rather still, use the child's imagination, go do outdoorsy things rather than stay inside and, work on a computer or play games or watch movies. They do a lot of things with their hands. They're very crafty. And so when I was assessing this home with their current foster care worker, I was like, hey, we really need to make sure that this is going to be a good fit for a child, not just our family. Because if you tell a child in today's world, hey, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no TV, bye.
How am I going to watch Mr. Beast and Dude Perfect on YouTube? That's what I got to ask. I mean, my kids wouldn't know what to do with them. Like, oh, no Disney Plus. What are we going to do? But that's awesome. I think that's, I think it's great. Listen, I enjoy watching TV too, but yeah, I mean, in modern world, especially not having Wi-Fi for a kid, especially during the pandemic, I know in Missouri, we went virtual, or at least ended the year. I know some schools went back, but yeah, I think that's good. It's a good family fit for the family, but also for the child. And there's, everybody's different when it comes to foster care. Let me ask you this, Terry, as a father yourself, how has working in foster care kind of changed your view of parenting? Or has it?
That's a good question. How has it changed my view?
Or how has it shaped you? Maybe as you've grown, I know you just had a child. Is it shaping you probably comparatively with someone that works in an office building?
Right. I think that I think it would honestly depend on, what my ultimate view of parenting is, which is almost what you said. It's a die to self, right? Like there is no, I could be selfish in parenting, and I certainly don't want to excuse myself from that, but ultimately it is a die to self practice daily with having 3 children, having a wife. And the same thing kind of equates to foster care. I am not a foster parent. I have done respite care before, and it is hard. It is difficult. And to have someone else come into your home, it really does take a lot of effort and diligence on your end and discipline to serve someone else. So I think that's how it's kind of shaped me. Even working through permanency planning or that case working role. Ultimately, I know logistically how to keep my children safe, but then we're looking on another level of like, what's going to be best for them.
Yeah. I think sometimes it would have to affect you. Like one of the people we have work at our school, he worked in sex crimes in the city of St. Louis, basically like SVU, I guess. And he just, the things that he saw, that would affect you even subconsciously. And I'm sure that, Zach, if you guys do have children, I'm sure that will affect you. I'm sure Terry probably I know that teaching affects me subconsciously and how I view it. Yeah. I think as a father, I'm sure that even subconsciously, you probably think this has probably affected you and you don't even realize it, I would assume. Probably. All right. So I know you guys don't necessarily, this is not part of your job, but how do you decide which family is going to get, or what child is going to go with which family, I guess, or which family is going to go with which child? Any way you want to slice it or dice it.
I know for like, if you're looking at just traditional homes, we unfortunately don't have like the best method, because sometimes we're looking for a home that night. So it may be where we're looking at a list of homes that they're willing to take this age range. So we kind of look and see who would be a good fit for that particular child. And so then we'll start calling around and checking. But one of the big things, again, going back to making sure it's a good fit, is when we call, or even when I approve a home, I tell homes, don't hesitate to say no, because I don't want them to say yes to a child that isn't going to be a good fit for them, but also not a good fit for that child. And I know that our number one goal is to find a good home for that child, but sometimes the best thing to do is to say no, and hopefully we find another home, or hopefully a family member comes up. Because one of the big things on top of recruitment is we are always looking for that kinship placement. So that aunt, uncle, coach, teacher, someone that's going to be able to keep that child in their community and they're closest to their proximity of familiarity. So there's a lot of things kind of going back to, like you were saying, like our goal is to make it a good placement for that child or children. Whenever we have to, unfortunately, bring more children into care. But then on top of that, just checking with our families and making sure they're well equipped to handle that child's needs. And I don't know if I missed anything, Terry, or you have anything else to add to that?
I think that was a really good answer. I think that there is an element to that we, especially with fostering, our families get kind of they have the opportunity to have preferences on age range and gender and some choices in when they can, on who they want to come into their home. So, when DHS calls them and says, hey, we have a 6-year-old male coming into custody that needs a placement for this evening, then they have the opportunity to say, well, okay, 6-year-old that we're willing to take up to 10. So we'll take that child for however long we need to. So they do get some preferences in that as well.
Yeah, I was always wondering that, and I'm sure a lot of it just what's available. I do know that as well. I mean, I'm not going to act like how many foster families are you short, and how many more children do you have in foster families is basically.
That is a good question. I'm going to look up some statistics.
All right,
that's a good question where we would probably need to look something up because we would hate to lie, but we know that at the same time we're always short.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what that's kind of what I'm trying to get.
There's always a need.
Right, and that's kind of what I was more curious. Like, if you average we're 100 families short or 200 short or just something of that, and I didn't know if you had that kind of number on top of your head. But I think there's a real need for that. But so I think number one, I think a lot of people don't know foster care. Like, I don't know, what's it like to be a child? So let's say you're a child and you get pulled from your home. Kind of step us through that journey from the child's eyes so that, let's say they're old enough. Like, I have a 7-year-old son, let's say 7. You're old enough to kind of know what's going on, but you don't really know what's going on. So share what that's like.
I was going to say, Terry, you want me to take it? I see you looking. Is he going to talk?
We've both been permanency workers, so we have seen what it looks like from the child's end, where it could be that they're coming to the office with us for a few hours till we find a placement. I mean,
are the police, do the police come with you to do that? Like, or do you go? How does that work?
So if the investigator's at the home and the police are involved, then the police can help, DHS remove the children, keep it civil, I guess, more or less. When the child is removed, then majority of the time, if there isn't a kinship, so someone who has known the child before they came into custody or is related to that child, that they can go to that is a safe option, then they're going to be looking at traditional homes, which is, who we're recruiting for. So, it could look like they're coming to the office with us, driving hours around the state with us through the night. Not us personally, because we aren't in the case working realm now, but when we were, that was our job. Like, that's what we would do. And there were those instances where we may be driving 3 or 4 hours away to place a child. And then you're looking at proximity, like Zach was saying earlier, that is so far away from their family. That is so far away from their school. They might not know anyone or anything out there. And all in the meantime, DHS is also working to get that child placed with a family member. So sometimes it doesn't happen on that evening, but it happens throughout the life of a case. But yeah, I think that's, if I was a child watching that, I mean, they may be even seeing caseworker changes where they had a worker who was seeing them for months, every month, they'd come out and see them, or a counselor that they were seeing every week or every 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, that counselor left their agency, or the worker has gone to another field or has left the agency. So yeah, they're dealing with all these changes as well, along with being removed from the one home that they know. So you can add on to that, Zach.
The only thing I was going to add really is, I mean, Terry, you covered it great. The only thing I was going to add just a little bit is when we are looking at those investigations, sometimes we will also do something called a safety plan. And it's where we try to keep, the state out of anything with this child's life, but we figured out that, we might need a week break, and we found this safety monitor that was willing to do our background checks. And we decided that they were a safe person. It's also a place where the child wants to be, the parents want the child to be. And we're hoping that this person is willing to kind of step up, keep the child safe, till we can say that this abuse, neglect, whatever the safety threat is resolved, and we can bring the child back into the home, or children back into the home. That's best case scenario. And we've started to see more of those, at least here in Oklahoma. I think other states are starting to do it as well, because they're starting to see, as parents, sometimes you just need that break to either clean the house up because it was a messy situation, or you just need a minute to do a complete mind reset. And so having a visit at grandma's, or having a visit at your aunt's, or uncle's, or whatever it may have been the perfect thing for the whole family. And then while we're there doing that safety plan, we're also trying to set them up for success and make sure that they have parenting classes or whatever it may be, to where we don't have to come back in. Because best case scenario, we wouldn't be in anyone's lives, but sometimes we have to be, to keep the children safe and give them the best opportunity to succeed.
In a perfect world, DHS would not be a thing.
Right.
We wouldn't have a need for foster care and adoptions. We wouldn't have a need for investigations, but we're not there. And I think, just to add on a little bit more, Zach, to that, is we have a whole team, a whole unit of people in child welfare called family-centered services, where they are working outside of the scope generally of the court involvement. And it's more of a, what we'd call like a volunteer based for the family. So the family is working voluntarily, doing some services, getting those things done to correct whatever behaviors there were. And like Zach said, when there's a safety plan monitor, that really does allow the family who may just be in a bad line, and it just provides them an opportunity to reset for a moment, get what they need to have done. So that way it's not, it is no longer a potential safety threat to the child.
Right. And I think it's always the safety of the child. And I like the way you said that, we're seeing that maybe just a short break. And I think sometimes people think foster care, they're pulled from their home and they have a trash bag, which I know that happens, all that stuff, but it's nice to hear that kind of other side was, hey, just kind of need to take them away, go live with aunt and uncle for a month, or whatever the case would be. And I think that's good. And that's great to hear that some of these things are happening now, and you're seeing, hopefully that's on the positive. All right. So kind of the last core question I'm going to ask you is, what surprised you the most, or what is one of the biggest surprises you've had working in this industry that you're in?
Man, that's
can happen to anyone. I think that we learn that these families that we're working with, there's nothing just like extraordinarily different from me and you. The tendency is that they're very much alike us. That we share a lot of the same, even qualities in wanting to care for our children, but sometimes there's a lack of resources and tools to be able to do so. I would say that's ultimately, like, for me, just working for DHS. To me,
and I'm sure both of you, since you guys are dads and you guys have kids and all that, I hear it and I don't necessarily see it all the time, but working with the kids and working with the foster families and working in foster care and adoption, one of the big things that surprised me to see how true it actually is it truly takes a village to raise a child. Like I think in so many instincts, not instincts, we realize that we think it's just a phrase, and it's not an actuality. When reality is even if you don't think you're ready to foster, kind of like what you and Greta are thinking, you're like maybe 8-9 years, we might be the perfect home. But even right now, there's a spot for you, even if it's, taking your buddy who is a foster home. Maybe it's taking them a meal once a month. Maybe it's doing the small things like, hey, I don't know what your DHS worker will say, but how would you feel if we took the kids? Like, what do we need to do to make that a thing, just to give the parents a night out? And so it's really seeing all these pieces come together and build this tribe to make sure that these families are successful, because the families I've seen that are the most successful are the ones that have that tribe and have those people built around them.
That's pretty common. I've seen, getting more people, not just yourself. You just can't depend on yourself and can't expect the government, to do it all in your situation, in that responsibility. You can't expect DFS to do everything in that. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we think that, at least I think a lot of people, oh, the government's got it, or hey, this agency. And I think that's good the way you put that, Zach, was enlightening, because it's like, hey, man, you're just taking a meal. And that's kind of stuff I've heard from other foster dads as well. All right. So I'm going to take you to our 5th down questions. I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. What's your favorite part of the job? What's the one thing you just love about your job?
For me, it's meeting not only the children, because with us having our job that we do, I think that a lot of the kiddos, when I was working with the families, have left a lasting impact, to where if I see one of their names come up, or if I'll randomly think back and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember when I took them to go do this, just because it's something they wanted to do. But also just meeting the families, and especially like meeting them where they are and convincing them that they are enough. And we're not asking for anything extra. Sometimes just opening your home is more than enough compared to what some of these kids have had. So to me, that's a couple of the things.
Yeah. So favorite part of my job, I would say, is podcasting. I'm joking.
That's what's your podcast? We'll plug you. What's your socials? I'll give you, what do you want? My parents will listen.
So I really enjoy getting out there, and just outreach is obviously a big part of our job. And just getting out there and talking to the community. Like, we have to be in the community. We have to know who the community is, because if there is an element of wanting to convince someone that this is a good thing for them, then we have to know who they are. But ultimately, I just enjoy getting out there to know who it is that may or may not want to foster, and just getting to know who they are.
Making connections is such a huge part. So yeah. I would just piggyback off that.
Yeah, I think that's in most jobs, making those connections. All right. So, something I ask all my people is, you guys have a billboard. Since you're on the foster side of things, what would you put on there to get people to foster, therapeutic or traditional? What would you have that billboard? Listen, we're in Oklahoma, so you can see that billboard from 100 miles away. But what would you put on that billboard? As in, what would basically, like, what advice? Is short advice, billboard advice?
Yeah. So Terry and I are actually laughing a little bit because we were going over the questions before we even got on this call. And I said, no matter what, Terry, do not steal my billboard, because I was looking forward to this question. But I think the one thing, simple 2-word or 2 to 3 word phrase, is just get too attached. I think that covers it overall more than anything, because so many people, when we're looking at foster care or adoption, are afraid of getting so attached, especially on the foster care side, that they're going to have to give the kiddo up. And we want that, because if you're getting too attached, then that means you're giving that kiddo like a loving home. You're giving them everything that you would give your own child. And yeah, it may suck when they go back home, but hopefully you've built a good enough connection with the parents and the child that you guys are still going to have that phone call or that Zoom or McDonald's play date, whatever it may be. So I think the big thing is just get too attached.
Like it. How about you, Terry? What was yours say?
Yeah, this is a hard one for me to figure out. And I put a lot of thought into this, and I was like, man, I should just like relay to Zach, like, because I like his. I really like the idea of maybe challenging some perspective on it, like if not now, when. And so
Deep.
There's been a new show out on YouTube. It's called The Chosen, and that's one thing that is asked a couple of times throughout this show, like if not now, when. So I took it from there, but I think that it applies here for people, because it takes people a lot of time to process whether or not they want to foster. I think statistically, you have to show someone something 7 times before they want to make a decision on it.
Hey, that's a great, both really good answers. I appreciate that. All right. I'm going to end off. Instant Family. Did you like it? How true?
I mean, I'm going to have to give you the honest answer is I still need to watch it.
Oh, come on, man. Come on, man.
Man, I have not seen it either.
I'll delete this. This is coming out of the podcast. I was like, man,
I know we are probably the only 2 DHS workers that work in foster care that have not seen this movie. There were foster care workers at the movie premiere recruiting other people to foster. So
that's awesome. I've heard it's pretty. Yes, it's Hollywood, and you're never going to fully not. But I've heard it's from it's fairly realistic. You, as a teacher in the movie, they kind of go this, oh, this is so easy and great. My kids are great. And then as soon as that honeymoon's over, man, you get about a week or 2 in high school and then it's on. I mean, it's like, let's go ding, ding. And it,
I think in real life, you get that honeymoon period. You see it as a teacher, you're going to get that honeymoon period for a couple of weeks. You're like, man, these are the best students ever. And then all of a sudden they'll start pulling pranks on you or being late to things or skipping classes or whatever.
That's true.
And I think you can have the same thing here.
I think that it is. I was curious, and I guess I'm just sad that you guys haven't seen it, that you can't give a movie review working for foster care. Well, no, hey, it's been awesome for me to hear your guys' side, the way you view it. I know I've talked to dads, and and once again, I'm going to reiterate, thank you guys for your work and your selfless work. I know that social worker and you guys, don't get paid what you should, especially probably in Oklahoma. But I know that you're probably having a large impact, and I'm going to speak for myself and just thank you. And thanks for coming on and sharing it. And it was really awesome to hear your guys' thoughts. You guys have any socials or anything you want to plug? Something you want to plug here?
For the state of Oklahoma, I would say check out OK Fosters. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and it'll lead you to the potential of, if it's your time to come and hang out with me or potentially Terry and maybe be a foster or adoptive parent, check those out. I don't know about Terry.
I'll put them in the show notes. I'll put that in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. OK Fosters would be the one for DHS.
Well, gentlemen, thank you guys so much. I know that you're getting paid, but nonetheless, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you guys. What a really cool episode. Their thoughts and them sharing that was just really great. I appreciate them coming on. And just that view of foster care is just not one that I've ever heard. And so it's good. Especially since Terry was a father himself, he had a different perspective, and Zach being unmarried and having a fiance, his perspective, and both of them been in there now, veterans of the foster care system. Once again, you guys know, follow us on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you have a prayer request or have a show idea or you want to be a guest, hit me up at adoptivedadplaybook@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Instagram. Love to hear from you guys. Other than that, be safe, have a great summer, and look forward to next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Adoptive Dad Playbook. Be sure to follow us on social media